Welcome back to another episode of Barbecue in Bottles, and today we are going to be searing this beautiful 3.8 pound bone-in ribeye. We're going to be searing it off in cast iron first and then finishing up in the oven. So this process is great if you've got a really thick steak, because you can't just sear it off in the cast iron, because by the time the inside of the steak is done, you're gonna have an absolutely scorched exterior. It'll either be burnt or it'll be well done. And so this process really allows you to get that crust that we know and love from cast iron seared steaks, but also will get you a wall-to-wall medium rare or whatever doneness that you're looking to cook your steak to. So first, what we did was we did a 48-hour dry brine with this steak. So we just salted it very generously, as you'll see here, with kosher salt. And because this steak is just so thick, you don't have to worry about over seasoning it. There's virtually no amount of salt that you're actually gonna be able to put on this that's gonna make it too salty in the end. We've got probably two and a half inches of thickness here on this steak. So the 48-hour dry brine also allows the salt to really absorb all the way through your roast, so you get more even seasoning, and it also helps to tenderize the meat as well. Put a cookie sheet underneath it and drop that in the fridge, leave it there for 48 hours, and then you've got this kind of beauty on the other side. So all we're gonna do to prep in terms of our cast iron cook here is get a few garlic cloves ready. So we'll just smash those with our knife. Just a quick tap really releases this little paper shell that the garlics are in, and then just peel that shell away. So now to preheat the cast iron pan. So we're setting that to medium high. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna first sear the steak, and we're gonna get that beautiful crust that we know you can achieve in searing steaks in cast iron. And once we've got the desired crust, we're just gonna slide it into the oven. So that's the next thing we gotta preheat here. And we're gonna set this nice and low and slow at 225 Fahrenheit. And the reason we're setting it that low is we want this to cook nice and gently so that we get that perfect wall-to-wall medium rare or whatever doneness that you're shooting for. Keep it nice and low if you've got the time, and you'll get that perfect outcome. So while we're waiting for the pan to warm up and the oven to preheat, we're just gonna prep a little bit of garlic like this, and we're gonna roast this along with the steak. So we'll just chop the top off like that, and then just make sure you get any of this loose covering just off the side. You don't want that coming off in your cast iron pan. And then boom, just like that, you're done. So we're just gonna check the temp of our pan here, and we've got, what we're looking for is somewhere between 450 and 500 Fahrenheit, and that's what we've got. First step, I would recommend you crack a window, open your door, just make sure you've got some good ventilation in there in your kitchen. Now next, we're gonna add some avocado oil, and this has a really high smoke point. I think it's just over 500 degrees Fahrenheit. It's perfect for searing off steaks. So we'll get that going. And now for the star of the show. Now we'll leave this here and just sear away probably for 3 or 4 minutes on this side. Then we're gonna flip it, and hopefully we've accomplished a really nice crust on the bottom side. Now that dry brine, what happened while this steak was sitting in the fridge for 48 hours is the salt made sure we had a perfectly dry surface on the surface of this steak, which allows all of the heat energy from the cast iron pan to transition into the Maillard reaction and give you that really brown, dark, rich crust that we're looking for. So now we're gonna flip this guy. Just look at that. What a beautiful sear. Now we're gonna get the other side here. And while this is searing away, we're gonna add a little bit of clarified butter. We're gonna take some of that garlic that we smashed up. We're gonna take some rosemary and just rough up the sprigs a little bit before you drop them in the pan here. And that is gonna just help to release more of the aromatics of the rosemary into the steak. And then finally, we're going in with the garlic. Now we'll put that head down. Now periodically, you want to be flipping your garlic like this, just to make sure that doesn't burn. All right, now we're gonna flip this one more time and we're gonna get the edges. Just look at that beautiful crust that's forming here. So you wanna render the sides of this. Don't forget to get those nice and caramelized. You also wanna render down some of the fat on the edge of the steak here. And now let's take out some of those garlic chunks that have really seared up nicely. Those will pair perfectly with the final steak here. All right, time to flip over these garlics. All right, now we'll spin it a little bit, get this side as well. You can see we've really rendered that fat cap nicely. And now we'll get the last side. Now we're gonna take out these garlics here as well. And now we'll take out the rosemary because that's done imparting its flavors and we don't want it to burn. So now what we're gonna do is insert our meat probe on our thermometer into the thickest part of the steak. You'll see the interior temp here is still 68, so we've hardly touched the internal temp of this steak. So we're just gonna drop it into the oven. Be careful on that transition. And now we'll let this finish off. So because we've got a really thick steak here, what we're gonna do is take this off at about 125 Fahrenheit, and then we'll just let it rest for 10 minutes, and we should have somewhere between 4, 5, 6 degrees carryover so that we try and finish this off at 130 or a perfect medium rare. Now while you're waiting for your steak to come up to temp in the oven, you can make some compound butter. Now we've already had this compound butter pre-made and we just have it in our freezer. So what we're gonna do is just slice off a little bit of this. Now this recipe, it's super easy. You can actually do it if you've got 10 minutes while your steak's coming up to temp. We'll drop a link in the description down below, but it's just butter, a little bit of garlic, chives, salt, pepper, and that's it. It's that easy, and it adds a really nice extra layer of flavor if you just put a little one of these medallions on top of your steak while it's resting. And now we're just getting the garlic cloves that we had seared in the pan, and while they look a little burnt on the top, you'll see here as you poke them out, these are beautifully roasted on the inside. Now we like doing up a whole bunch of these cloves because you can use this, even if you want to put it in your compound butter, you can go right ahead and do that. We put them in a mason jar and they store for about a week. They're even amazing to eat on their own, frankly. And if you don't like those burnt ends, then fine, just go like this, boom, you're good to go. So you see here we hit 125 on the thermometer, so now we're ready to take this out of the oven. Right, now we'll go ahead, transfer the garlic over here. Transfer our steak over. Look how beautiful that is. Now, we're gonna let this rest with a bunch of the compound butter on top. Perfect, and that's just gonna provide a really nice extra layer of flavor and just make this absolutely glistening on top. So now we're just gonna let this rest and we're gonna leave it untented. Don't cover this in foil, just let it sit here 10 minutes and then we'll come back. You can see all that butter is just melted on the top here. Now time to carve in. What a beautiful steak. Now this took us from start to finish about an hour and a half from the time that we pulled the steak out of the fridge. That's just to give you a sense if you're doing a steak that's this size, which again was about 2.5 inches thick. Now we've got the spinalis muscle here, which goes around the main part of the ribeye. So we're gonna try and carve this up in a way that gives everybody a taste of that spinalis. Just beautiful. And you can see with these cuts, we've got that wall-to-wall medium rare that we talked about. We've got a small little gray edge here, but then it's just beautiful, evenly done medium rare steak on the other side. Oh, I wish you could smell this. One day YouTube's gonna come out with a feature where you can smell what's on the other side of the video camera. Let me tell you, this is absolutely outstanding. Just beautifully done. Now, what we're gonna do is go in for the taste test. All right, now we're just gonna snake a piece of the spinalis here. That is absolutely wonderful. Great crust, evenly seasoned with the salt all the way through. You can get that rich flavor from the butter, the garlic, the rosemary. This turned out exactly how we planned. So now let's just transfer it to a cast iron pan and we'll serve it that way. Beauty. Most of that came over. We'll get these last few pieces here. So how about that for some presentation? So if you like this video, consider giving us a like below, maybe subscribe to the channel because we've got lots of more steak videos, grilling and barbecue to come. Thanks for tuning in.